What's up, gamers? Welcome to The Couch. This is a show where we take your favorite shows, movies, animes, animations, and we put them through that gamer microscope. Now, before we jump into it, I have a very special co-host that's going to join us. But before he gets to actually chat it up with us, let me give you a little teaser about what he's about.
Save my soul, flow so cold for sub-zero. Earth rounds looking straight as heroes go. I gotta stay on my toes to fight these foes. She got secrets like Illuminati. Naughty bad chick with the rockin' body. Better be careful, she'll take your soul. Ice froze heart, make your blood run cold. Yet I'm happy with the person I've become, and I'll never be the one to back down from what I've thrown in life. No matter what, find a way to overcome.
Woo! All right, Bud, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us and helping us co-host this amazing episode. We're going to put you on a roller coaster ride as we jump into Castlevania Season 4. Holy shit, what an amazing season. What an amazing first episode for us. Bud, talk to us. Tell us where you're from, what you're doing here, and why you're chopping us with us about Castlevania specifically.
And I'm from Marietta, Georgia. I'm part of the theme team. Thank you for having me on to talk about this. I love Castlevania's storyline. It's probably one of the best adaptations from a video game to, thankfully it was a series, because if they would have done a movie, I think they would have messed it up trying to miss so much. So I'm really excited about it, and I hope they actually make another season. So...
All right. Well, so I know it's been a while, and it's been on since I believe around May 13th, right? So a lot of people had a good opportunity of time. We wanted folks to actually be able to watch the season, because we're going to go through a lot of spoilers here while we talk through the character development. So if you have not seen it, I'm going to tell you right now, there are going to be a ton of spoilers. So you may want to bow out, watch it, and then come back and play us. But if you have seen it, right, and you want the answers and you want to hear what we think and discuss some of the more pivotal parts of the story, well, you're in the right place. But let's have a quick recap with the Netflix trailer to get you up to speed on some of the things you might have forgotten.
This is where it all started.
Everything has led us here.
Which means we are here for a reason. All right, where would you like to start?
The whole world's gone crazy.
We've lost many people to night creature attacks. Will you help us?
I'm sure I can do something for you.
Sisters, Hector is finally ready to start making night creatures. We could take the entire world for our own.
It's a spell. It will have the name of the person he was trying to bring back from the dead.
Oh, let me guess.
It decodes as Vlad Dracula Tepesh.
Why the fuck would anyone do that? Huh? Would you do that? I wish I could fucking kill you twice. We killed Dracula. And now we have to spend the rest of our lives making sure nobody brings him back from the dead.
When I began this journey, I had a very simple plan. That plan has evolved. The plan is now conquest. Kill everything you see. Begin!
Ready?
Hell no. But when's that ever stopped us?
You know me. I'm going to eat your soul.
Awesome. Wow. Wow,
That's
what can I
crazy.
say? Now, going all the way back to season 1, right? I remember hearing, okay, they're making a Castlevania series. Netflix is kind of going to take charge of this. And I was on the fence. I'm going to be very honest. I didn't know where we were going to be with this thing. I mean, you hear about video games being turned into animes, into animations, into movies, shows all the time. And most of the time, they suck, right? And, I mean, if you are a diehard fan of a game, you will probably watch it anyway. I am one of those people. But, most of the time, your expectations are set really low. Now, I remember going into season 1 thinking, okay, I'm going to temper my expectations and just see what they have to bring. And I was blown away. I mean, that first scene when Dracula is getting revenge on the whole town, right? And his face comes out of the sky. I knew that this was something amazing and special, right? And, you find yourself in this weird state where you're actually going for the villain. You understand his anger and his pain, and you're like, yeah, fuck everybody, Dracula, kill them all, right? They all deserve it. And that's how I knew, like, this is something really special because I'm so ingrained in the character already. Now, Trevor Belmont was interesting because he was kind of like this low-spoken, and I don't know if you had the same issue I did, but I found myself struggling to understand what they were saying sometimes, and hearing it felt like they were mumbling half the time. And I'm like, what's up with the audio on this? Like, I could barely hear what they're saying. It sounds like they're whispering to one another. And like, I didn't really like Trevor at first. I'm gonna be very honest. Like, I felt, yes, he's the protagonist, and I wasn't a Simon Belmont fan either. He was arrogant, and it just came off the wrong way. But as you go through the seasons, right, when we finally get to season 4, and he's been on this journey with Sypha and all this pain that they've been through, all this agony they've seen through these seasons, it's crazy how you've grown attached to them, and you want to see them come out of the other side of things. Give me a little bit of your perspective, bud. What are your thoughts? Like, what was your experience in the beginning with the first season, and then coming to this grand opus at the end of season 4?
I'll tell you, the first episode blew me away. How it went from actually Lisa walking into Dracula's castle, having the balls, so to speak, to actually do what she did just for, the love of science and wanting to learn, become a better doctor and help people. Like that, right after that, 15 years later, they end up burning her at the stake for being a witch at the time that the church got so much power to be able to just basically rule the government and everything around them. They were able to murder and do whatever they so pleased, no matter how ignorant it was. And like, I kind of agree with you with Trevor itself. Like, he does seem really arrogant, kind of an asshole when you first come into his character. And basically throughout the story, as it builds his backstory, and you see the kind of, just like you were saying, the pain that he went through, and just knowing that the church completely disregarded their entire family because of the fact that they were slaying and killing monsters, but they wanted to use them as almost politics to make everything seem like it was their fault that Dracula was even there. And of course, once you get to the third, to me it was the third season when I really started liking them. And, they go to the priory and start messing shit up there. The spell casting that happened in the basement, and just story, the character development of everybody at that point. Sypha, like, I love her. The beginning of the first episode on season 4, when it actually like kind of backtracks their 5 weeks, and it gets to the point where it shows her cursing. She's like, "Damn it, shit, word ass." Like, that was hilarious. So I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you bring up some really good points, and I actually want to go back a little bit because we thought it was all done when Dracula died, right? Like, we're like, okay, what else is there to do, right? You already reached the climax of the story, in my opinion, at least when I sat there watching this, and there was nothing left in my mind except to kind of clean up the lower vampires, right? And so it was interesting how you're sitting there and you're like, this is over. What are they really going to do, with the next couple of seasons? Because with Dracula gone, who are really going to be the antagonists? And it was amazing for me to see how they started developing these characters that we kind of, I don't want to say ignored, but were secondary to the storyline, right? And they were auxiliary, really creating Dracula's world, right? And helping us understand the politics within, the vampire realm and everything around it. And so I'm going to play a quick clip because I really want to talk about these two characters. Now, the Council of Sisters under Carmilla, right? Now, when we first met Carmilla in the Castlevania storyline in the Netflix series, right? She kind of seemed like she was someone that was annoyed by, Dracula because he really had no direction anymore. She thought of him as this crazy old man. But we really didn't see her as very important, at least the way they were portraying her, right? We felt like she was just like everyone else. They were just trying to figure out where Dracula was going and what he was doing. And like you expect from vampires, most of them are trying to stab each other in the back, right? So, but we get to season 3 and we get to season 4, and my gosh, the growth that they've had, right? Especially Carmilla, right? Carmilla was really taken from this annoying kind of angry character to someone that had a deeper meaning in her actions, and even she did not understand them. She had this big hate within, right? Like, and it swirled around men and the empowerment that the men had, and she really wanted to empower the women vampires, and that's why she had this council, and to the point where she went power hungry and crazy, right? And this was her downfall, and this is usually the ultimate downfall of all villains. It's not new storyline, right? They succeed to a point, and then they go beyond their reach, and she tried to go beyond her reach, but she was just amazing, and you knew she was powerful, right? But you didn't know to what degree. Now, I want to hear your thoughts on this, because I don't know if I was the only one that kind of cast her off. I was like, yeah, the Council, the Sisters, okay, sure, whatever.
Like, I love the character. Like, of course, whenever she first popped up in season 2, you hated her because she was conspiring against everybody in Dracula's castle. All the generals trying to get everybody against Dracula. And just like you were saying, with the fact that it was almost like a childhood psychological issue that she grew up. Because of her master turning her and then inevitably going insane. So she ends up killing him. And from that point on, she hated any crazy old men trying to rule her or actually control her in any way. So she was getting to the point where she just had such a huge bloodlust for greed and power that it just overtook her. And then at the end, whenever she actually is fighting Isaac, her eyes turned completely blood red, like Dracula's did once he lost his mind in the second season at the end.
Mm-hmm. So I came full circle. But I know I played the Striga clip, and I want to go back to Striga because we saw her as this behemoth tank, right? That was honestly, you pictured her as the bodyguard for all of them, right? You're like, okay, that's the muscle. right? And you figured she'd be a brute and she'd be someone that, you know, wasn't too intelligent, because that's how she portrayed herself. She said, you know, I'm not a tactician, you know, I'm a warrior, I'm a fighter, right? And we were cool with that. But at the end of it all, I almost feel like she was the most level-headed of all the sisters, you know, and you kind of see it come to a head at the end, right? Where Carmela's demise is finally realized. She makes the decision to not have a fight with Isaac and Hector's monsters, and to take the remaining vampires somewhere else, right? And that's where you kind of see her true ability as a leader. And even in that battle in the day armor, which, let me tell you, that day armor is phenomenal. Like, I've always thought to myself when I watch vampire movies, I'm like, why don't they just wear some type of armor, you know, like back in the day, that would protect them? And so it was really funny to see my thought process. And then she opens this casket, and there's this awesome day armor. And, you know, I honestly felt she could have killed all those folks by herself, but she calls to the remaining vampires that are in their tents, and she's like, armor up, you know, cover yourselves, and come to the fight. And she did that for several reasons, in my opinion. One, because she needed to show them that she had no fear, and they should have no fear. They're vampires, they're superior, and the people they're fighting are livestock, and we're not going to let something as small, right, as small as the sun get in our way. But she had care about the vampires that she lost in battle, and we see this. She has an argument with her lover, right? And, you know, I love what they did with that relationship, right? Because it was a yin yang, right? You know, I believe Marina, right? Marina's her name. Morana, sorry, I don't know why, but she was the yin to her yang, right? And it was funny because they reminded me of couples that we all know that have been together for 20, 30 years, right? They weren't pushing them off as, you know, like these super sexualized vampires. They were a couple who had been together for a couple hundred years or more, and they loved each other, had empathy for each other, understood each other, and supported each other in what they were doing, right? And you can see the little quibbles they had back and forth. But it was a beautiful way to portray that relationship, you know, and I honestly loved it. I thought it was fantastic. You know, I also think back to Alucard and, you know, him being stuck in his castle all by himself, right? Being alone, having killed his father, not really grieving that, but having that pain inside. And, you know, he is just like a sentinel for this dead building, right? The castle is basically a reminder of everything that he cared about that's gone, you know. And then you have two lost folks that show up, right? And, you know, he avoids them for a little bit, but his necessity for engaging another human being, you know, having love, if you want to call it love. I don't even know if it was love. It was just wanting to feel and be felt, right? And you see how it turned against him, but it was nuanced in a way where it wasn't forced, you know. And I feel like a lot of times today, Hollywood, you know, kind of regardless of the sexuality, you know, it pushes sex when it doesn't really need to be pushed. And in this series, they did an amazing job of nuancing it and making it something that fit for the moment and felt natural and real. And I thought it was a beautiful thing. And I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. I want to get your opinion on this, Bud, because, you know, those two relationships specifically, you know, Striga definitely, because she felt like such a shell before, and she was such a deep character by the end of it all, right? Yeah. So let's start there. What are your thoughts?
Well, you definitely start seeing her intelligence. I mean, to be somebody basically in a military style fashion of her daily vocation, that right there, you have to have some kind of intelligence to it. So she kind of mainly hides it, and you feel like she is the brute. And By the way, congratulations to them because most relationships don't even last 5 years. So, that's yeah. Rana and Striga's relationship in itself is a very beautiful, to me, opposite attract, because you've got the big, strong, person, and then you've got the person who's more of a more laid back, romantic type. Morana's the one that kind of really starts breaking down in that scene whenever she pulls out that head armor of how she's not really with Camilla's plan, her scheme, as they call it, and reference it multiple times, because that's all she has time to do is basically scheme while she's by herself, and she doesn't have anybody to really love. So that just kind of builds on her character and why she is her. And the other, romance between Trevor and Cypher is also another just beautiful opposites attract. And then the fact that they start wanting to back out of Camilla's plan. And then also Lenore actually takes in and makes Hector her slave, but actually starts falling in love with him at the same time. And then the ending of their relationship has just got so much, symbolism when it comes to letting go. And I think the way, just like you were saying, the natural way that they brought these relationships in, it didn't seem forced. Whenever Alucard was actually getting to know Taka and Sumi, the strangers that he met, and then they came in to basically love on him and make him feel good, because they seen so much sadness in his eyes because he wasn't grieving his father's death and killing him. And the way that it ended, completely blew my mind. I did not expect them to do it, but at the same time, you felt something was awkward just from their facial expressions. And I love the way that this show does that. It's like they allude to something that's about to happen, but you of course don't know until it actually happens, and it makes you have this buildup of emotion. And
it's awesome that you said that, because one of the things I loved about the way they did Alucard's story development was the fact that he had this terrible experience with strangers, right, who he opened up to. And yet when the horse shows up at the castle, right, with the note asking for him to come and help the people, you see the conflict within him, the humanity, that he knows they're not going to survive if he doesn't go there. And he knows it could be a trap. He knows it could be, something to lure him into an escapade where they're going to try to kill him again, right? But he says, fuck it all. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try to save these people if I can. And, the one thing that I will say that I disliked about the series is, Alucard is such a special character in Castlevania as a franchise, right? And he's just so OP most of the times, right? And they showed it, but there were moments where you're like, well, it didn't make sense, because some battles he seemed really OP, right? And then others, it's like he was having a struggle, but he was still amazing. Like, those battles were just amazing to watch. And, I love the way, even though Alucard is the beloved character, that we expected him to close out the season, shall we say, right? It was Trevor who really became the ultimate hero. And you didn't expect this, right? Because Trevor has been getting the shit kicked out of him since the first season, right? And it's that classic will overcome all, right? And I hate to say it, this, we're in a pandemic time, all the bullshit that's going on, like, you need to see that, right? You want the hero to come out the other side. And I'm going to tell you, I am so sick of Hollywood killing off the protagonist nowadays in everything that we do. I feel that I'm just done with that. And I want to see the cliche hero survive and win. I think we need that. We need to see the hero win. And the fact that he did what he did, beat death, right? And we'll get into that in a minute, but beat death and survived. And we got the happy ending. We got the ending we wanted, right? And I was worried. I was really worried. Like, you know, I was okay with the way it ended, but I was like, man, if only Trevor had survived. And, you know, I was hoping when I saw Saint Germain and, you know, what he did, I was hoping that that's what happened, that he saved them. But then they were saying like, hey, she's been, you know, inside for a week. And, you know, like it was going the wrong way, man. It wasn't going the way I expected it. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, first thing, one thing I absolutely love about this entire series is the comic relief that they have in certain points, because it's such a serious subject matter. But just where they plug these little bitty laughs, it killed me. Especially like whenever you were talking about the horse riding up on the Alucard. The back and forth that Alucard starts having with this horse, and it just pisses him off for whatever reason. Just the way he talks to the horse made me laugh so hard I almost rolled on the ground. But I love the way that they did Trevor, because just like you were saying, I didn't expect him to be more of the main character or the protagonist for the actual, you know, series. I thought it was going to be more Alucard, because in Symphony of the Night he played him a lot. But like the first two seasons are more based off of Dracula 3, and then The Curse of Darkness is kind of what's in the last two seasons, which they've done that so great. Most Hollywood takes any kind of idea of a video game, or hell, even movies half the time, that are done from books. They completely disregard the true story of it, the reason why fans actually liked it in the first place. I know they have investors investing in these, and they always expect their money back. But y'all need to stop, Hollywood. The people in the business world, they want the story that came from the video game. Hell, I don't care if you take literally the video game and just dumb it down. Just keep the same story, quit adding, you know, new character shit that didn't matter. What they did with Resident Evil, which it is a good series if you watch it just for the movies themselves. But if you try to, you know, interact that with video games, it just kills it. And the first time, like we talked about this, the first time that Hollywood has ever listened to the fans is whenever people were outraged about Sonic the Hedgehog's look. And then they actually stopped the movie from coming out and waited about 3 or 4 months while they went in and completely digitally redone his face and his body type, his shoes, everything. And it was a freaking amazing movie. Like, I love that one. I can't wait for the second. But with,
Jim Carrey.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say Jim Carrey was, you know, when I heard he was going to be Dr. Robotnik, I thought it was like, this is perfect. He's, you know, he is the one person that can pull off this type of character, right? You know, be eccentric and wild and yet intelligent and even scary, right? You know, but in a comical way, because that's what Dr. Robotnik was. He was a scary guy, but he was like that scary villain that you're like, yeah, man, like I just have to avoid him and cross the street. I could still laugh and point at him, but I don't want to get close to him because then I'll be in real trouble. But let's go back to the relationships we were talking about, because there's one relationship that we kind of missed. And I'm going to play a clip because it's going to remind us all about these two.
Agree. But even if this device works, it will take time to fight through the creatures you've made for her.
Can I borrow your knife?
Here we have it, Isaac and Hector. Now, when we first met these two, right, they were mere puppets for Dracula. And they went on their separate journeys. Of course, Hector betrayed Dracula, But he was still a puppet, right? He ended up being a puppet for Carmilla instead. And Isaac was on a mission to destroy all of humanity and just felt that humans weren't worth saving. And so he wanted to continue Dracula's legacy. And then along the way, through their separation, now granted, Hector had it worse, right? Because Hector was just being tortured for most of the time. But Isaac, it was interesting because it's very much how we interact as people. I feel, right? We have our anger, you know, and our moments that we're irrational, and we say, you know what, we don't want to talk to anybody, we don't want to be around anybody, everyone sucks, everyone's out to stab us in the back, and I'm just going to try to live my life, and if I could get rid of, you know, the world, I probably would, right? We've all had that thought in our head at one point in time, you know, and much much like Isaac, we run into people that prove to us that not everyone is bad and not everyone is out to stab us in the back. And it was so well written how his minor interactions as he's on his journey to destroy humanity, right, and get revenge for Dracula, his mind starts to shift and change. And I remember the conversation he's having after he cooed the city and killed the wizard, right? What if you didn't have to just destroy things? What if you didn't have to follow what they said was your nature? What if instead of destroying, we built, right? And I remember, you know, the creature of the night asking him, why are we doing this? Why would we do this? And he said, because at some point when we leave, people may want to come and live in the city again. Right. And it was an interesting flip in his mindset. And that's how you knew that things had completely changed. Right. Because he was concerned about recreating this city so it could be inhabitable and folks can live there again. And on the other side of the universe, right, in Carmilla's world, you had Hector, who was completely broken and trying to find new purpose. And had actually started to regret how he had gone against Dracula. And in a sense, almost finding love in someone, right? And we see that towards the end where it actually did turn to love. And he was very adamant about telling Isaac, no, you leave Lenore alone. She stays with me. And it's very tragic. I feel so sorry for Hector because seeing what happened to her at the end, even though I understood it, I felt for him because I felt he didn't have anything left. And at the end, both of them are left to figure out what they're going to do with the world, right?
Like, I love the character development of Isaac and Hector. Like, the actual storyline that goes through with Isaac himself when he starts changing his mind. Like the first time when he gets on the boat with the captain and they're sailing. And just that conversation that makes him start really questioning what he's doing. Do you really want to be a player in somebody else's story or do you want to make your own story? That right there was a great way of actually breaking it almost instantly because he had so much hate for people after killing everybody in that city and getting on the boat. He was ready to kill them too. But whoever played the captain, the character, the voice actor did such a great job in the way of actually bringing him in and just reeling him into actually looking at what he's doing, the emotion. And the fact that Hector getting his ass kicked by Lenore was great. I did not expect that.
Oh, that was well, you know, he still had that arrogance in him, right? Where he still felt he was the smartest person in the room. And it showed, it basically humbled him and taught him that things are what they seem always. And in a sense, she was being kind to him because she wanted, even though she was trying to get him to create monsters, she admitted before that she didn't like violence for violence. She preferred whatever other methods you could use, negotiation instead. And so her method was, I'd rather ask you and make you want to do this for us even though, you know, it's against what your nature is. And yes, you're still a prisoner, but I don't want you to feel like that. I want to at least try to accommodate you and make you feel like you have some ability to have a life and exist, not just as a slave to Carmilla, but have purpose, right? And it was an interesting relationship between them. But the one thing that was standing in everyone's way at that moment was Carmilla, and the amazing scene. And I'm gonna have to play the clip because we need to see this again. She was such a powerful villain, right? More so than Dracula in the sense, because Dracula was just insane at this point, right? He was just overwhelmed with anger and rage, and he wanted to destroy everything. And Carmilla was heading down this path, right? It's the classic story of, you know, the apprentice becoming the master at the end, and she was definitely becoming Dracula at the end. But we understood now why people feared her, right? Because you look at her and you're like, well, she doesn't seem like she's that powerful a vampire. And we learned, and we should have learned our lesson with Lenore, right? But let's take a look at this real quick.
And when you die and go to hell, I'll be there waiting for you. With a sharp, bloody stick and the determination to find out if you can die twice. I am Camilla of Styria, and fuck you! I win.
What a powerful scene. Now, what we missed before that is the floor is covered in the blood of the night creatures that she has dismembered throughout this battle, because she's been caged in here and she's been fighting monster after monster after monster, and not one at a time, but 4, 5, 6 at a time have been coming after, to the point where the blood is spilling down the stairs into the other hallways and down the rest of the castle. And the imagery is just so amazing. It's done so well. The art direction is like bar none some of the best I've seen in animation, and you know, there are very few that can hold a candle to the artistry that has been put into Castlevania in all the seasons, I would say. And that final scene, that tear that falls down her cheek, that understanding that, you know, she's leaving this world and she didn't accomplish her goal. And that's what I felt, right? Like, this is the journey I was taking with her. I'm sitting there, I'm watching, and I'm like, this tear is not a tear of her being upset that she lost. And that's why she says, fuck you at the end, right? It's because she won't accomplish her goal. And that's what she wanted. She wanted to take over the world for her Council of Sisters and prove that she was far superior to Dracula, even though she wasn't, right? Even though he is the beginning. She wanted to show the world that this female vampire that no one expected anything of could overpower the entire world, not just parts of Europe, right? And that beautiful scene where she kills herself, right? And Isaac is only saved because his monster sacrifices himself, right? She would have won. She really would have taken them both out, and the expectation was that she would have, right? But yeah, let's dismantle that. There's a lot to unpack there, right?
Like that last scene, like you were seeing, the animation was flawless. I like the way throughout that they kind of show how much power she has. They kind of make her character blurry at times. You know, we're doing fast animation. They do that a lot in like animes and stuff like that. But I believe the way that they actually put it together and then continuously going back and forth once it kind of settled down in the moment and we're speaking, but they went back to the normal animation, and it just made it so much more powerful. And yeah, she was everybody. Like, I really did not expect her to be that badass. Like, I feel like she might have even gave Dracula a run for his money if they decided to actually go head to head, because she had so much rage built up. Like you said, she pretty much turned into Dracula. Took all the rage, hate for her, issues, and pretty much tried to put it out on every human possible. And it was a beautiful scene.
That she did. We're getting a couple of shout outs in the room as folks are jumping in and out. It's I gush every time I think about all the fight scenes, right? Because they're just so well orchestrated. Now, after Carmilla is kind of done, there was another battle that's happening, right? That mattered, and that is the battle at Alucard's castle, or Dracula's castle, right? And there's a lot going on there, and you see the despair in Alucard's face, right? And then this happens.
As if my day wasn't going badly enough. It's Trevor Belmont.
You don't seem to be doing very well. What are we looking at?
Vampires and night creatures trying to kill a castle full of human
What an amazing moment, right? I remember I'm watching this, and my kids are somewhere else, and the wife is somewhere else, and I literally jumped off my seat and like, woo, yeah, baby, there we go, because I was just so excited, like seeing that powerhouse together again. Ooh, you knew you were in for something. And it's crazy because this animation stirred so many emotions in me that live action movies don't do anymore, right? Because you expect the same things over and over again. It's like cut and paste, and I was just so invested in all the characters here that when they came to Alucard's aid, and they didn't know they were coming to Alucard's aid, they're like, well, we're just going to follow, Varney and see where this leads us. And they show up at the castle, and I was like, this is it. Like, they're gonna do what they have to do. And it was just, again, another amazing action-packed few minutes where they're just cutting through everything that's being thrown at them. And you just have to take a breath at the end and say, wow, what happened? Because they just cleaned house, right?
Yeah, definitely. The band is back together. Like,
the band is back together, yes.
The fact when they showed up and you could just see almost the emotions between just their facial expressions, how good, glad they were to see each other. I love the smart ass comments that go back and forth between Alucard and Trevor. And it's just like they're just talking mad shit about each other. But at the same time, it's out of a love-hate relationship with their friendship, because they know they really do like each other. Even though, it was real rocky at the beginning. They were just, I'm better than you. Just had that ego that I could take you on at any moment. So, you couldn't stand up to me.
And so, I'm going to just leave some scenes running in the background here, because we have a lot of stuff to unpack, and only a little bit of time to do so. Varney, this fucking guy, right?
Yeah.
He's deaf. Who the hell expected that to happen? Now, I'll admit, I am not as familiar in Castlevania lore as some of my peers, right? I played the games, I enjoyed them, and some folks are deep fans. And so if this was sprinkled somewhere, I didn't know about it, right? And so you run into Varney throughout in the series, right? And you're like, who is this guy? He's just like this schlup. And you think to yourself, like, but there's something about him, because they keep alluding to the fact that I'm Varney and I'm, Dracula's first choice. You know, I've been told to stay here and run things for him and shit and all types of nonsense, right? And you're like dismissing him. You're like, whatever, man. But you know he's going to be pivotal at some point. You know he's going to play an important role. And then all of a sudden, the freaking guy turns out to be Death, and now we have the great evil beyond Dracula, right? Trying to actually bring Dracula back as this like hermaphrodite creature to take over the world through madness. And you're like, I did not see that coming. I didn't. I'll admit it. I was like, very well done the way they set all that up and the grand battle. Correct?
Yeah, that actually is one of the small changes that they did with the storyline. Because if you go through the Curse of Darkness game, it was a guy named Zed that almost looked like the mayor of the town that they ended up fighting at the Priory. They look very, very similar, and I think the reason why they made that is to make that so dramatic whenever the reveal actually happens at that time. So they kind of hid that character, changed him up a bit, but made him such an asshole. You hated him the whole time. I'm Varney. I was the best in London. Da, 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 da. Yeah. But just like you said, how he kept losing himself, just repeating his name constantly. You knew something was going to happen, like internally. And then when it did, it was completely shocking that it was actually Death, because it went almost around in a circle. Whenever the season starts, through that 5-week span, they end up coming up on some humans that were sacrificing children to a statue or altar for Death itself. Yeah. So at that point, you started realizing, we're probably going to see the Grim Reaper at this point.
Yeah, and I expected. I just didn't expect him to be the guy.
Definitely not. I didn't expect San Germain to do what he did. It was pretty. It was very, very loosely alluded to what he was doing, and you knew something was going on. You didn't know exactly that he was actually with Varney and conspiring with him at the time to make this happen. And I'm pretty sure throughout the story itself, a lot of the stuff that San Germain, the information that he got placed there because of Death itself.
Well, I mean, it's funny because everybody ignores Varney, right? They're dismissing him left and right wherever they see him, and so you laugh about it. I mean, he was funny. He was a funny character, and we completely dismiss him. Exactly, like he's and you're thinking to yourself, like, this guy, like, what's his purpose, man? And then Saint Germain, again, the hubris, right? He's like, I'm going to control the infinite corridor and bring my love back. And it's again another sad tale that draws parallels with Dracula, right? And so at the end, here's another character that becomes obsessed with their loss, and it turns them to make the wrong decisions. And so here he is. And I'm not going to say he was a lovable character, but he was a likable character, right? Yeah. And we've all walked into that bar, and there's that lovable, likable drunk that's in the corner, and he tells a couple of jokes, and you laugh because they're not funny, but just because the complete package of this character there, right? And he's that guy, and you like him, and then he turns out to be a total shit, right? And he's like willing to do anything and everything, no matter what cost, and he becomes again another puppet. And so to see him redeem himself at that end, right, and bring our Trevor back, I'm gonna say it. He brought our Trevor back from death, and that final episode. And I'm gonna talk about the death battle after that, but the final episode where they tied the story up completely, right? Like they've packaged the season. If they wanted to close Castlevania completely, they could, right? Yeah. Alucard has found a purpose. He's found love. Cypher Trevor, of course, she's pregnant, right? She's gonna have a little Trevor for her own. So not Trevor, right? Trevor. She's gonna have her own little Trevor. They're gonna have a family, right? So it's like the gang is back together and they have a meaning for everything, and even the vampires, right? Okay, yes, Lenore was a big loss. I personally like. It was a beautiful scene. It was very well done, but it was tragic, and nothing is perfect, and so we knew some of the other characters were not going to have the best ending, and this was one of those situations where Lenore gracefully left on her own terms. But Hector and Isaac have now found a reason to live, and that is to figure out why they want to live and do whatever they want now. They're no longer constrained within Dracula's world. And so, and then Striga, of course, she's decided to bring the vampires away from all this ruckus and nonsense that was Carmilla's will, and hide them and shelter them and save them so they can survive. Right. And so we've beautifully tied up almost everything. And, I'm very sad to say that I think we're done with Castlevania, at least this series. And I hear that we're going to have a spinoff. There talks about a spinoff and possibly even going back to Dracula's origins, which would be really amazing in my opinion. But what do you think? Do you think that it was wrapped up? Are you happy with the way it ended? Do you think they could have done anything better?
I'm absolutely happy with the way they ended it, because the second episode before it ended, or the second to the last episode, when Trevor dies, I was so pissed off, because like you were saying, I'm tired of Hollywood always killing, the hero in the story, because it happened in so many different movies, because it was a twist. You didn't think that was going to happen. Well, now everybody pretty much thinks it's going to happen. So the fact that they kept him, brought him back, and Sypha ended up going through 2 weeks of just complete torment, knowing that she was pregnant, thinking that he didn't know, but of course he did, because right before he actually ended up dying, he said, "Don't use the name Trevor."
Terrible.
Yeah. And Lenore itself, very, very sad ending. I think that she was relieved to see everything the way that unfolded, and that's why she was happy to just leave at that point, because she saw so much death even before she was 5 years old, as she says in the story, that it would be hard to live that type of way, and then just knowing that people are going to completely hate you for what you are at that time. That was the most beautiful, way that you could go as a vampire, watching the sunset and then turning around and making fun of Hector right before. And you're such a strange man.
Well, she said, "Let me see what's so special about this sun you keep blabbing about," right?
Yeah. And then right after, she disappears, he goes over and starts basking in the sun, almost like reminiscing about their time together, even though it was so short. But, Trevor coming back on that smart-ass horse that Alucard didn't like. I know that's... And then you see a cloaked character coming. I thought it was going to be an enemy when I first saw it, and then it was going to be like alluding to another season. But then once Trevor fell off into the arms of Sypha, and just that emotion that you felt, like I'm not going to lie, I teared up at that point. But that shit was so powerful. That they ended everybody almost on a complete positive note. Even with Lenore dying, it was still almost positive, the way that they, were being able to release that emotion and just plan for the future. I really hope they make another season. The spinoff, there definitely has been talks about it. From what I've heard, it could possibly be a Devil May Cry spinoff that they're actually going to do instead of doing some kind of other Castlevania storyline. But I really do hope that they continue to go through every single one of the games, basically from the very first one to where we're at now. And I can't wait to see what happens in the games after now, and hopefully they make some movies too.
I mean, there's a lot of lore, right? There's a lot there.
So
and I'm gonna say, Konami, get off your asses. Stop trying to make casino machines and go back to producing video games like you should, and we'll buy them. I mean, you have some amazing franchises out there, and Castlevania is one of those franchises that has endured the test of time. And I think with Netflix causing a revival, right? We see limited run games now selling pre-orders for like the Ultimate Castlevania packages, and those are getting scooped up left and right. So there is a desire for this to happen, and I agree with you. Like, I'm not gonna lie, man. I cried when he said "I love you," and I'm like, because Hollywood's gonna f this up and kill him, and that's it. And when the battle was amazing, that battle with Death, where he was like, you know what? I may not be able to, but I'm gonna fucking try, and he did.
It was set up in the game so much.
Yeah,
I love that fact that they made it feel like you were almost playing a video game the way they did the ending boss. Like,
absolutely,
that was probably the best one of all the scenes, even though they've got so many great fight scenes. And I will say, I've got to say this: I have a huge beef with Konami right now. The last podcast we were on, I did make a mistake because I got duped. I saw a PlayStation 5 reveal of a new remake for the first Silent Hill, which I am a huge Silent Hill fan. So I lost my shit when I first saw it. And I've seen at least 3 different ones that were pretty, it's going to be that. There's no other, way. It's almost exactly like PT. Supposedly there are still more talks. There's a game in development called Abandon that Kojima is supposedly on the board to direct and come out with, and there's talks that PT Silent Hills is actually going to be released. Now I'm going to tell you, Konami's got 3 of the biggest video game storylines with Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill, and Castlevania. Like, you are leaving so much money on the table if you do not listen to the fans and give them what they want. And if you're just going to casino games, maybe you need to get out of game development.
Or sell the IPs. Sell them to somebody that wants to do something with them.
And then sell it to somebody who actually cares about them, too.
Yeah. And I'm a huge Kojima fan.
Yeah.
I've been dying for a Metal Gear movie for ages now, and I want to see it done right, though. I don't want it to be some fluff. And, it's just one of those things where David Hayter, who played the original voice of Snake throughout the series, it's just an amazing guy, an amazing character. And Snake will forever live in our hearts because his character was so well developed, and Kojima treated it as cinematic experience versus just a video game, right? And we've already seen, thanks to people like him and other directors, I think of God of War as well, right? Where over the top, action and cinematography around, all the scenes and everything that's happening with the story takes the front seat, and you're along for the ride. Uncharted, right? Like, all these great games that are changing our perception of video games. And now we're seeing the effect of that with series like Castlevania, where folks are looking at these storylines and saying, you know what, there's something special there. We can do something with this. Well, yeah, we've known that as the fans forever. You've laughed at us, but there's money on the table if people want to actually take these stories and turn them into something out there for us to watch. I know I'll pay to go see it. Mortal Kombat, when they said they were redoing it, I was already like, take my money. Here you go.
Well, I know that.
We are actually. Go ahead.
I was basically, going to go over with the fact that I just love the fact that any kind of game that comes out that has a storyline. Personally, I don't play video games unless they have some kind of storyline. I get bored very easily, and if it's not going to push me to want to play it because it's just, you're collecting trophies, or you're, first-person shooters, they don't ever really usually have a storyline, except if you play through the storyline of Call of Duty. stuff like that. You need to have a storyline if you're going to keep people engaged. But continue, sir.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that, you know, the season, the entire series, let's put it that way. The entire series of Castlevania is a win for video games. It shows that it can be done. It can be done in a way that's thoughtful, that's engaging, that has character development, that can draw audiences that are not gamers to this, right? Because I've shown the series to many people who generally would not watch a video game based movie or show, and they look at it and they're like, wow, this is actually really, really good. Like, the animation is really, really good, and I like the characters and I like the story. And you look at a series like The Witcher, right? I mean, that's another series that was a game first, and it was an amazing game, amazing storyline, and it's another, I guess, coup for Netflix in taking over, right, these game franchises and using them to bring subscribers in. Because I know I will not ever get rid of my Netflix subscription as long as they keep doing things like this and bringing shows like this on board. And so, you know, congratulations to the team that put Castlevania together. Like, you guys really did it. You know, I want to say, like, it's an amazing experience. I think anyone that takes the time to watch it is going to love it. They're going to become fans. They're going to go back and say, I want to play the game. I want to see what the game was about, that this was based off of. And, you know, I will say your mileage may vary because some of these games are old, folks, right? So, you know, don't expect what you're seeing on a PS5, but, you know, take it for what it was at its time, right? Where technology was, that they were still crafting this amazing world for people like us, for gamers back then and for gamers now. It's still a great experience, I think, and you know, that's what we do, and that's what we want them to do. And so, you know, the couch is about this, right? We want to hash out and tell you our opinions. We want to hear your opinions. We want to hear your comments. We've been talking for a good hour or so, but hit us in the comments. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you enjoyed this. Let us know how we can make this better for you. We're trying to not be your average review show, right? We're the two guys sitting on the couch talking it out like you would in your own living room. So welcome to our living room. But I will say, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here because our show for now is over. Tune into our next episode. We'll reveal a surprise on what that's going to be very soon. So look out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube for those promos. Check out the Theme Team Remix, right? Like, let's make sure that you hit them up. Bud and his group and Kaz are always putting out amazing things every week, right? So make sure you follow them on Instagram and YouTube. I will leave links below for the VOD of this, right? So you can follow them and you can check out the cool stuff that they're doing, because they are converting movies that are coming out and that have already been released and remixing those movies into these amazing musical. I don't even know how to describe it, because it's just it's so new and so awesome and so unique, right? You know, they are hashing the best scenes of movies, remixing the music, but still keeping it so you know what you're listening to, and it's a completely new experience. It's amazing. I love what your team does. I don't know how you put out the content every week, because it's a lot of work. So please, guys, check them out. Give them a thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up here. Subscribe, leave comments, hit the notification bells. Do all the things that you need to do to keep this content coming your way. And we will definitely keep providing it for you. I'm that Game Dragon. This is Bud. Bud, give him a good shout out, a goodbye, and we will see you soon.
All right. Thank you very much.